This balloon represents type 1 diabetes. And living with type 1 diabetes is like suspending a balloon mid-air through every thought and activity you face throughout the day. Pretty hard, right? The reality is that people with diabetes never stop juggling. They have one eye on their diabetes and one eye on life. Let's say driving, for example. You know that time of day, that hour where the sun sets, the one where you're tired and hungry and awaiting the end of the night with just you and your silk pillow? That time, between 5 and 6 p.m. that holds a sense of urgency and anticipation. Do you know what I'm talking about? That time, peak hour traffic, where you're seated behind a wheel, stalling behind a car that's behind another car, and another car, and another car, and another car, and you're forced to just sit back and surrender to the endless line of cars before you, full of people who want a hot meal and a shower just as badly as you do. Let's just say you're at an intersection turning left, and the car to your right is blocking your view of the oncoming traffic you're searching for a gap in. You know you need to wait because prioritizing convenience over a proper view to your right could end up being the last decision you ever make. But the person behind you is honking at you and you really just want to take that left turn and take a risk. Just fly blindly for a second. What's the worst that could happen? It's the 50-50 chance. That left turn is exactly the life experience type 1 diabetics face every single day, like me. I'm the one with type 1 diabetes, and I've been maintaining this juggling act between my life and my health for 7 years now. So what do you think might happen when we arrive at my destination? It's 7 p.m. on a Friday night, and we've just arrived at my favourite Italian restaurant. Let's take a quick look at the menu. The pizza definitely looks amazing, but the amount of oil and grease on it makes it lower in the glycemic index, meaning that the absorption rate will be so slow that my insulin will peak before my food does. So my blood sugar will go low, and then it will go high later. The pasta, on the other hand, is definitely one of my favourites, but guessing the wrong amount of carb on such a high-carb meal like that will most likely only end up in 2 ways. I'll spend the whole night chugging juice boxes, or wake up with a dry mouth and a headache. Either way results in no sleep. The chicken schnitzel and potato, though, that might actually work. I'd only have to guess the amount of carb in the potato, which will be between 20 and 30 grams, and even if I give my insulin late, if I choose to eat the potatoes last, then hopefully the combination of the meat slowing down the absorption rate of my carb will mean that my insulin will peak at the exact same time that my food does. That might work. Although now that I think about it, last night, I started my period, which means that I'm hypersensitive to insulin at the moment, which means that no matter how much I plan and scheme and change my dose, I'll most likely just end up going low anyway. And I guess either way, the restaurant's quite busy, so we could expect a long wait time no matter what we order. And even though I'm sensitive to insulin at the moment, it still takes 10 to 15 minutes to start working in my body. So if I pre-dose for the meal like I'm supposed to, and the wait time's longer than half an hour, I'll end up going low before the meal even comes, and I won't have an appetite anymore either. In our current society, type 1 diabetics don't get a choice between convenience and a choice between safety. Because guessing the wrong amount of carb in a restaurant meal will cause a type 1 diabetic to administer an inaccurate dose of insulin. Not enough insulin will cause an episode of high blood sugar, known as hyperglycemia, which if left untreated will cause death in a matter of days. Too much insulin, on the other hand, will cause an episode of low blood sugar, known as hypoglycemia, which if left untreated will cause death in a matter of minutes. Either way, I could go low, I could go high, or I could die. Unfortunately, despite significant advancements in treatment technology so far, perfect blood glucose control is nearly impossible because synthetic substances and medical devices cannot replace a fully functioning pancreas or natural hormone excretion. But when we look back at the ways society has made meaningful change so far, we can acknowledge that when we were made aware of mental health, gender equity, nutritional needs, and identity, we implemented annual events like Are You OK Day. Women were finally given the right to vote, although we have some room to grow. Food products were sold with mandatory nutrition labels, and pronouns were readily adopted. Society's trajectory so far can confirm that when we know better, we do better. So in essence, I'm here today to simply turn your attention to the concept of not knowing. The general gap in understanding or recall that each and every one of us have something going on beneath the surface, whether we're aware of it or not. And in this instance, I'm asking you to turn your attention to the world of invisible, incurable chronic illness, such as what I'm talking about today, type 1 diabetes. And what better time to do this than on International Diabetes Day? So now that those of you who weren't aware are more aware, we can dive a little deeper. This conditional cure for invisible chronic illness is one that relies on the conditions we create as a society, utilising education and knowledge as power to create a world that is so seamlessly accommodating for the needs of chronic illness sufferers, so that their daily schedules are just as attainable as everyone else's. This cure is relative to the conditions that we establish. And the more we know determines the more that we can change. I believe that a type 1 diabetes-free future can be reached by creating a world that is so facilitating that type 1 diabetics no longer feel the distinction between the extra daily steps they take to survive compared to those with fully functioning bodies. In the current absence of a scientific cure, we each hold the responsibility to create an environment that bridges the gap between living with type 1 diabetes and living without it, reaching a level ground for individuals who breach the thin line of normality, no matter the size or context of their deviation. I've put together a 4-step guide to help steer your thinking in the right direction from level 1, acknowledging the issue, to level 2, initiating change and making progress. If you feel like you haven't even reached level 1 yet, then let me spoon feed you a fact that will get you up to level 2. Did you know that the international colour for diabetes awareness is blue? Which I've so conveniently used to help you remember your 4-step guide. So number 1, B, become aware. Open yourself up to the experiences of others around you. Ask people, are you okay? Make a conscious effort to see the invisible, whether it be diabetes, POTS, chronic fatigue. Be aware of what you can't see. Be knowledgeable, be curious, be a breath of fresh air for these people. Simply become aware. Number 2, L, listen and learn. Listening and learning is how you'll find your role in this conditional cure. Learn about what you don't know and listen to those who do. This is how you become educated, and education is the key to this change. Number 3, U, understand and establish. Use your new knowledge to choose your next move. You might be a restaurant or cafe owner who chooses to put nutritional facts tables on the backs of menus to expand their customer demographic. Because I'll be the first to admit that a nutritional facts table in an Italian restaurant would make my life so much easier. You might be an architect who designs rest bays in school hallways, or you might be a curious mind who works to diminish social stigma they walk past on a daily basis. Last but not least, number 4, E, educate and inspire others. Now that you've found your role in this conditional cure, you have the responsibility to inspire the open-mindedness of people around you. Share your ideas at the dinner table, share your knowledge with other curious minds, and make a shift in vocabulary that can help chronic illness sufferers be relieved of the burden of simply being misunderstood. Type 1 diabetes can be described as a state of starvation in the midst of plenty. While there is plenty of sugar in the blood, inadequate insulin action prevents the sugar from entering and providing the cells with energy. This idea is exactly how I like to describe society's potential. Indifference, stigma, social bias, fear, and money are the state of starvation that illustrates our social stagnancy. Just a simple shift in perspective can change the quality of lives of chronic illness sufferers in our community. So if we each take 5 minutes to use blue and find our own role in this conditional cure, then type 1 diabetics and other invisible chronic illness sufferers can finally let go.